All right, so we're going to look at some more of the foundation of Georgia's government, starting with separation of powers. So we know we had three branches of the government in Georgia: legislative, executive, judicial. And separation of powers is basically saying that each of those branches has separate powers that they can do certain things. So the legislative branch makes the laws, executive enforces, and then judicial interprets the laws. So here's a visual representation of our government structure in Georgia. So we have the legislative branch, and in Georgia, we call the legislative branch, which is basically Congress, but we call it the General Assembly. And it's broken up into two houses: House of Representatives and the Senate, a bicameral legislature. Then we have the executive branch, which is basically ran by the governor, and then the judicial branch, which is our Supreme Court in Georgia, and it's ran by our Supreme Court justices. Now, when the founding fathers were drafting the Georgia Constitution and made these three branches, they didn't want not one branch to have too much power. So they came up with the idea of checks and balances. So basically, each of the branches can check each other or they feel like somebody overstepping their bounds. So you could pause the video right here to kind of look at this diagram of some examples of checks and balances. Now, when it comes to your rights and responsibilities of you as a Georgia citizen, so as a Georgia citizen, you have the right to freedom of speech, press, religion, to bear arms, right by trial by jury, etc. Your basic Bill of Rights and Human Rights outlined in the U.S. Constitution as well. In Georgia, also, whipping is not allowed as a punishment for crime, and you have the right to fish and hunt wildlife as long as you follow the guidelines of the state law. Now, some of your responsibilities as a Georgia citizen is you must pay taxes. You must serve on a jury if you've been summoned to jury duty. You must volunteer at certain things, and voting is also one of your responsibilities. Now, speaking of voting, you must check off three boxes technically four, but three main boxes to qualify to be able to vote. So you must be a U.S. citizen, check one. Then check two, you must be 18 years old on election day. And then check three, you must be a legal resident of Georgia, and you must be a legal resident of the county you want to vote in. So what that means is if my home and my address of my license is in DeKalb County, I cannot vote in Newton County. I have to vote in DeKalb County because that is legally where I live at. So if you check these three boxes off, you qualify to vote. Now you cannot somebody who is serving a sentence in jail for a felony conviction will not be able to vote in Georgia. Also, certain people that have certain mental disabilities also don't qualify to vote. Now, when it comes to the Pledge of Allegiance, so this is Georgia's current flag. And if you look in that seal right there, where you see the words wisdom, justice, moderation, these are in our Pledge of Allegiance to Georgia's flag. So you probably, if you didn't know, we do have a Pledge of Allegiance to Georgia's flag. We just don't necessarily say it in school. So it goes, I pledge allegiance to Georgia flag and to the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, and moderation. So I want to look at those principles real quick. Now we have the three principles: wisdom, justice, moderation. Each of these principles is dedicated to a particular branch of government. So wisdom is dedicated to the legislative branch, and wisdom reminds the legislative branch to be wise in creating laws. Justice appeals to the judicial branch for fair and just decisions. And then you have moderation, which urges the executive branch to carry out laws calmly within the boundaries of the laws. So, with these three principles that make up our Pledge of Allegiance to Georgia's flag. All right, we're going to stop right here and we'll pick up later on.